Good evening, everybody. I'm Cyrus. I am actually here in the Centennial Hills neighborhood of Las Vegas, where right now it's chilly, windy, and temperatures are in the 30s with wind chills are probably in the 20s. The reason I'm making this video is because I'm trying to let the public know a little bit about the truth and reality of the alt-right movement. And those of you who don't know what the alt-right movement is really about, and I'm also responding, by the way, to a video made by the YouTube user Red Elephants, and their video regarding why demographics matter. And what their top concern is the fact that what's happening in America and what's happening all over the Western world is that the white percentage of population is declining. And they believe that the fact that given these immigration trends, it's going to change the cultural, economic, social, and more importantly, the political voting habits of our society. Now, I want to let you guys know what is my take, okay? What is my take on immigration? Well, is my top concern the demographic changes? Not really. My top concern is the fact that we have bad management and corruption behind our immigration system. In other words, we have special interest groups that want massive third world immigration because they can provide cheap labor. And there are bad politicians like that we see in this state, in California, that want votes, that want favors. For an example, in California, the immigrant votes help to pump in enough assembly and senators to raise your gas taxes. So, for an example, you have somebody who votes for a person for immigrant rights, and that is able to channel that to pass a gas tax increase, considering the fact that that person doesn't seem to care about these kinds of issues. So this, as a result, brings an environment where these immigrants are less likely to care about higher taxes, liberty, and the Constitution. And that's where really the alt-right is really concerned about. The other problem that I have a concern is bad management. As we see in California, if you're not expanding your transportation capacity and there's a lot of traffic and you're saying, well, we're a nation of immigrants, keep flooding the people out of control and your congestion gets worse and worse, that's bad management. And it's not racist to say that we need to stop bringing people because we can't expand our capacity. And as a result, we have to just basically keep it as a pause. It's just common sense. But you see, that's the problem that I have with the immigration system. Now, many people in the alt-right, however, they have a problem when the white percentage of the population is declining. And they believe that all this immigration, whether it's legal or illegal or through migrants, it's also happening in Europe, all over the Western world, is a concern. Now, yes, it is true that if you actually, for an example, pause immigration, you are going to quite remedy the situation. You know, whites are less likely to be a minority. But it does not solve the entire problem. The biggest problem that what we're not really encountering is the fact that what they're really not talking about is that more white people are going to have more kids. That's part of the problem. Many people in the alt-right, whether it's Jared Taylor, David Duke, Ann Coulter, Alex Jones, they all need to start educating Caucasian people that they need to have more kids. The fact is that the typical white woman is having 1.3 children per person in countries that you'll find in Europe, or 1.6 or 7 in America, that is below replacement level. That is the problem. The problem is we've created a social and economic environment that discourages people from having children. And of course, they make up this excuse, well, we have this aging population, so we need this third world immigration with their kids to take care of the elderly. That's not the best way to do it. We need to have more children from our own American citizens to take care of older Americans. That's what we should be talking about. So this is one of the things that you really have to keep in mind. Now, looking at that video that the Red Elephants made, believe it or not, it was regarding the fact that you showed images how Santa Ana has transformed, and I sort of have a different thought. I don't think that the change of Santa Ana from primarily a white city, and I've been there many times, 4th Street, to a predominantly Hispanic neighborhood, I don't like to look everything glass half empty. I think there's still a lot of great things about Santa Ana. It's not just 10 cities, the places still look very nice. There's a vibrant culture, but I get it. A lot of the changes have not been all that great. Okay? That's one of the things that you have to understand. And by the way, a lot of these changes, to a lesser extent, has actually happened here in Las Vegas. Although it really hasn't been a complete takeover, but considering the elected officials that we've been recently getting, like Ruben Kiyuhan, it's likely we're on that track. So we have to, if you guys don't want these changes, people in Las Vegas and all over America, you guys going to have to stand up for yourselves. But again, the heart of the problem I want to get to is that in order to solve this demographic crisis, and again, I'm not trying to say white people are better. This is just an advisory video for the alt-right. Okay? For me, for instance, I seem to like people of my own. I love Persian people, their heritage, their culture. In fact, they gave a lot of great things that white people have today. Believe it or not, if you check your history. So, if you guys want to preserve the white race, you guys right now, all of you need to come together. And this is way better than possibly stopping immigration or kicking people out. You need to create an emergency event or a session where you're going to have to start educating lots and lots and lots of young people to have more babies. That's what you need to do. You got to start talking to some random young white woman and say, hey, you're 21 years old. Get out there, start marrying somebody. Don't have kids out of wedlock. Don't abort your children. Start producing nuclear families. You need to have more babies. You need to have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 children. That will counter the effects of massive immigration. Okay? But of course, there's more than just that. Of course, you have all these children, then the public schools wouldn't be a burden, because now your kids is going to be a larger percentage of the population, and there's a better use of our taxpayer funds. So it's not just stopping it, it's also countering the problem. Now, I want to make this very, very clear, okay? I don't want to make this video about bashing women. But I have to tell you, to a lot of women out there, especially white women, the changes in your roles and your mindset in the last 50 years is really the problem. And this is why so many of us, believe it or not, are claiming white genocide or white ethnic cleansing and all this stuff. It's simply because of the fact that, well, guess what? A lot of you white women are not what you used to be 50, 60 years ago. Now, before I get to white women, I want to go after men, because men are part of the problem too. If you men out there, if you're not dressing well, if you're not mannered good enough, if you're somebody out there who is obviously sitting there playing video games, watching porn, having beer bellies and watching football, if you're being players and all that kind of stuff, do you think you're really helping? If you're out there not getting good paying jobs, that's not helping. That's not creating an environment where women would want to establish with you and want to have kids. Folks, this is serious. If you want to preserve and protect the white race, a lot of you gentlemen have to be good providers. Now, speaking of providers, I have to tell you this. The other problem is the economic reality that has been created. It doesn't help when a lot of your jobs have been outsourced to China and other low-wage countries. Jobs that many of them were good paying. It doesn't help when housing costs, except for some places like here, And healthcare and college tuition costs have been rising out of control. And speaking of college tuition, this college debt crisis has disproportionately affected women worse. You've got all these women 50, 60 years ago, they were happy housewives. Now they're out there in their 20s coming out of debt. They can't find good paying jobs, and guess what? They're $30, $60, $150,000 in debt. Many of these majors are not even all that helpful. You know, I'm starting to think that a lot of people need to start wake up. The things that we have been told and the things that have been done in the 1960s aren't as great as we were told to be. And a lot of things for minorities and women were better than they were prior to the 1960s than they are now. But it's so sad because our society is so politically correct that we can't talk about these truths. This is the harsh reality that we live in. And guess what? Here's one of the things I wanted to talk about. The other problem I just wanted to point out is the fact that a lot of you women out there, you guys are, if you're going to want to have more kids, your mindset's going to have to change. Because I've heard a lot of reports that I'm going around YouTube, the dating environment sucks. And I've heard a lot of reports that the dating scene is not great for men. Go to online dating, one woman can get dozens of hits in a day. One man who's a 10 doesn't get a lot. It's a very, very rigged system. And of course, there aren't that many good places. The problem I've noticed is when I see a lot of women out there who are, when I see a lot of women out there who are 18 to 25 years old, they're busy going to school, they're working, or they go to these places like nightclubs and bars, which is so loud, and it's just a very, very uncomfortable environment. It's not very pleasant. And that is the problem. The problem is, it's so hard to find a lot of young women in normal places. Grocery stores, drug stores, parks. It's not easy. And these are comfortable places to approach women. But the problem is with a lot of men is that if you're not part of a gang, if you're not cool, you're not fitting in, you don't have that vibe, you don't have that swag, all of that stuff, you don't have a good social circle, you can be good looking, you could be a good man and a good provider, but you have trouble dating out there. And this is the problem with a lot of young women. Women are conditioned to believe that it has to be the right environment, the right setting for a guy to approach them. And this is why so many men are struggling, because they don't have these opportunities. See, and when I've seen a lot of women out there, they want to just get out there smoking and drinking and then date the ones who are dudes and bros and dogs and all that stuff. And these aren't men who are going to provide you a lot of opportunities. In fact, you keep doing that, and then by 35, you're gaining weight, you have kids that you don't have a father to take care of, you hit the wall. This is the problem. This is a social engineering that has got to change, ladies and gentlemen. We have got to start waking up. We have got to start realizing that this system is the problem. And of course, men have been kind of manipulated too, because of the fact that they have been trained by this gangster culture to be in a certain way, and that so many of the young people have been trained to think that somehow these are the men that we have to start appreciating. Where else in the old days, it seems like if you were a nicely dressed up person and with a lot of respect and a lot of honor and all these great things, you were the man that seemed to be very, very standing out very well. But unfortunately, we don't have a societal mindset to think this way. I think we have to start educating a lot of young women. If you're parents of moms of, your child is in your 20s, you're going to have to start telling them it's important to preserve the race. And when I'm telling to a lot of women out there, I'm not saying lower your standards. I'm not saying that you have to go out there and start dating a random homeless guy who's smelly No, that's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm saying is you're going to have to start opening your options. Maybe if a guy who comes out to you may not have the best approach, but you give him a chance to go out on a date, and you know what? He may be a very great and amazing person. But this is the problem. You know, the mindset of young women has got to change. This is really, really the significant concern. And I think you need to start educating the young people to think that their mindsets have to change. You know, it's no coincidence why a lot of Western men have seek dating opportunities abroad in foreign countries like Philippines, Thailand, in Ukraine, in Russia, because they're just not happy what's going on in this country. So, to a lot of women out there, and I know this may offend you, but I think that if you guys really want to preserve the white race, then you're going to have to start toning down on working and going to school and clubbing. And by the way, these nightclubs and bars are really, I think, the heart of the problem that we're having in the society. You know, when you go to these bars and nightclubs, you have to be a player, have some kind of pickup skill. I mean, since when do we have to go to these places to meet young women? Why does it have to be this way? Why can't it just be some beautiful young woman sitting in a coffee shop and some decent man with decent social skills can approach them? But you see, that's the problem. The problem is the environment, the scenario has gotten tough. And maybe this is why so many men are struggling, so many men cannot discover new relationships, and this is probably the reason why the birth rate is so low and we're experiencing an ethnic cleansing of the European American population. This is one of the things that you have to keep in mind. And of course, it's not just meeting them or dating them, it's also the fact that, you know, the relationships don't go too well. If you look at the old films, women were like princesses in terms of their personality and their character, and now you really don't see that anymore that much. This is really, really the problem. And I think we're going to have to return some of the back to more traditional roles. Now, I'm not saying that women are just there to have kids and be housewives, but I'm against this propaganda that's brainwashing a lot of women that having families and having children is simply a not so great idea. So if you want to save and protect and preserve your culture and your heritage, you're going to have to start educating a lot of young white women. And we're going to have to also fight for more sustainable and more reliable relationships. That way we can counter the effect. That way we can start really, really making a difference and bring the percentage numbers up from 65 whites up to maybe 75 or 85. Then that can be a really significant change. But again, a lot of things have to be done in order for us to get to that level. Okay? And I want you to spread this video, folks. We have to really, really get this thing going. So, I just have to say, looks like, you know, the dating scene, the relationship scenarios, and the alt-right movement, I think all these things are well interconnected together. Okay? So, anyway, I want you to all take care. God bless. Merry Christmas. And stay tuned.